What is going on, YouTube universe? My name is Trent and welcome to the Hip and Shoulder, the channel where we discuss everything Australian rules football. And today we turn our attention to the 2024 All-Australian squad. Now later tonight they will reveal the 22 men selected from the team of 44 that has been announced. Don't even get me started on the 44. I'm going to drop a separate video with the snubs that I feel need to be discussed, because I think there's a handful of players that missed the 44 squad that should have definitely been in there, and there are some questionable inclusions that are in the 44 that probably shouldn't be, so keep eyes peeled for that. Also, speaking about eyes being peeled, I know I owe you a podcast for round 24. We got to do a recap of the round 24 tips as well and see how the competition ended up overall, and I will be hosting an AFLW tipping competition this year as well, which will kick off tomorrow because that's when the AFLW kicks off. Never have I ever done an All-Australian selection in video format, and I know this is going to open myself up to criticism because some of the selections I make might not be agreed upon, but I can assure you, I've gone through and looked at statistics and stuff like that and compared players against each other, so when it comes to the players being selected for my team, I've definitely taken a bit of a deep dive, and it's not just I chose player A over player B because I like one over the other. A lot of controversy comes out of the All-Australian selection panel because we see so many years players selected in roles they don't play. For example, I believe we've seen Marcus Bontempelli selected as a forward before when he doesn't really get that many forward minutes. We have seen many All-Australian sides floated over the last week where we have seen players that don't play the position of a wing playing on the wing, and it seems to be the common cause for this happening is there are players that are performing so well throughout the season that they don't fit within their current role in the team, so they're made way for elsewhere. Midfielders getting selected as defenders, getting selected as forwards, getting selected as wingmen. I'm trying to avoid that as best as I can. If at all a player has played some minutes in a position, it might open themselves up for opportunity, but I'm going to try my best to nail players that have played certain positions. Fingers crossed. And I know, again, it's not going to appease everybody, so let me know in the comment section down below if you agree with the team I'm putting together, if you disagree, what your teams would be. Let's have a talk about it. But we're starting with the full back line. 2 back pockets and a full back. Now, I'm about a lot of players here, and I've done a lot of, as I said, statistical comparison. I've done Dan Houston versus James Sicily. I have done Harry Sheezel versus Sicily, Harry Sheezel versus Dan Houston, Wiedering versus Andrews, McGovern versus Wiedering. I have done a lot of things to make sure that the team I pick is comprehensive. We are going to start in the back pocket with Harry Sheezel, who, if you look at his numbers, is rated elite amongst a lot of them. He did play midfield minutes this year, which opened him up to getting more disposals and marks and tackles. But if we're selecting any players, he started his career as a halfback flanker. He started this year in defense, and you know, a lot of people are going to disagree with it, but I think he is deserving to be in the squad. Fullback, Harris Andrews, again, a player who out of the key defenders ranks at the tippy top, I feel. And a lot of people are going to be upset with the omissions from this team. I can feel it as I go on. But Harris Andrews, to me, has continued his legacy of being one of the better lockdown key defenders. His one percenters and his spoils and his marking, just over the top. Absolutely elite. The other back pocket, we're going with Dan Houston, who I feel has been overlooked by a lot of people in their All-Australian squads. He ranks elite in a lot of aspects. The fact that he is a running halfback who provides a lot of run and carry, a lot of avenues for goal. His distribution for Port Adelaide sets up a lot of their forward half scores. I can't not have Dan Houston in my back 6. Moving on to the halfback flank. I think it speaks for itself with the 2 halfback flankers that I'm selecting. The first of which is Lachie Whitfield. If you have followed my podcast series throughout the duration of the year, you would know how highly I've spoken of Whitfield from round 1 all the way through to round 24. This year's been his best year, I feel, for his entire career, and he deserves to finish the season with an All-Australian blazer, and I find it hard to top him minus one or two players, I feel, for that halfback role. As I said, Dan Houston could have been there, but Lockie Whitfield comfortably sits in this position, and the other halfback flanker, you'll understand, fits in that position as well. So we've just pushed Houston from a halfback to a back pocket, which isn't much of a push. Centre half back, I've done the comparisons. Feel free to come at me. It's Jeremy McGovern. He has ranked elite for marking, especially intercept marking, for kicking, for handballing. It's not the process of chipping the ball backwards and getting easy kicks. He has had to grind hard in a team that has been getting smacked. And he always stands tall for West Coast. He is an absolute pillar. It's no surprise that when he hasn't played, West Coast have struggled even more and coughed up bigger scores. A lot of people are going to be upset with the fact that Jacob Wiedering has not made my starting six. Go through and do the stat comparison yourself. He does not measure to McGovern or Harris Andrews in that key defender role. Halfback flank, the final position, Dane Zorko. He's been absolutely insane this year. And while players like Bailey Dale have had strong finishes, I can't justify putting Bailey Dale in an All-Australian team when he started the year off in and out of the team, being a sub, not being a sub. I don't know. I feel it's going to be a body from round 1 to round 24. You can't isolate bits and pieces of a season and say he played well enough for this portion to get a nomination. So when it comes to players that have been nominated, he's one of them that I'm a little bit iffy on. Sam Collins is another one. However, statistically, Sam Collins actually measures up, so I'm actually quite surprised. Out of the 6 that didn't, you know, that have made it here, the stiff to misses for me, Max Holmes off halfback has been sensational for Geelong. And I've loved the work of Luke Ryan and Jordan Clark, but they function within a backline that does a lot of chipping backwards and moving the ball around, so their marks and their kicks somewhat get padded by, you know, their ability to just move the ball defensively around amongst each other. With James Sicily, he does rank elite in some aspects, but I don't feel he's within the best 5 players this year for Hawthorn, let alone the best 6 defenders in the competition. So feel free to come at me. We might see him pop up when it comes to the interchange. I don't know, but that is my back 6. Looking at the centres, we've got to pick 2 wingmen and our on-baller. The first wingman selected is Errol Goulden. I think it just speaks volumes. He is the best wingman in the competition by far. His ball use, especially bringing it inside 50, is elite. He runs for days. He might have issues sometimes with disposal efficiency, but there is hard to find a wingman that does it better than he does. Looking for on-baller, there are a few that can be thrown around. We've got Lockie Neal, Patrick Cripps, Nick Dacos, Zach Merritt, Caleb Sarong. I think it's had a better year than Andrew Brayshaw. Noah Anderson has made the 44 squad, and he was my smoky for a selection this year. So if he makes it, I'll be happy with that prediction. Zach Butters has had a good year. Horn Francis has had a good year, but I don't know whether he is deserving of an All-Australian nomination. Similar with Sinclair. Sinclair started the year off very poorly, but got back into things. Heaney obviously speaks volumes. I still stand by the fact that I think Treloar has had a better season than Marcus Bontempelli. Feel free to come at me there. But we are going to throw... Oh, who do we put in as our starting mids? It's got to be the 3 that I think are contending for the Brownlow. So I'm going with Lockie Neal. He could be potentially pushing for a 3rd Brownlow. I think he's going to fall short. I personally think there's going to be a draw come Brownlow night. It's going to be between Patrick Cripps and Nick Dacos. That's just my feeling. But Lockie Neal started the year off a little bit shaky, but came back into some incredible form. And while I just said you've got to work over a body of work, you can't just pick and choose, he might have only had 1 or 2 games at the start of the year that are a little bit off. Brisbane were getting beaten comprehensively those first 5 rounds. They were 0-5, whatever the case may be, 0-3, whatever. But he was still standing tall within that mix, and it's just a shame that you can't carry a team on your own back, because he tried so incredibly hard to do that for the boys this year. The other wingman, this is where controversy gets kicked in, because I have seen people selecting Zach Merritt. I have seen people selecting Marcus Bontempelli, Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner. It has got to be Massimo D'Ambrosio. The fact that they have selected 2 pure wingmen to be selected into the 44, you've got to select those 2 wingmen to be in your best 22. I was shocked with the output this kid put in this year, and it still kills me. He was in Richmond's VFL system. We tried hiding him and blanketing him in the mid-season draft under a shoulder injury or an elbow injury. It was some kind of arm injury we tried to hide him through. Essendon didn't fall for the shit and drafted him, and they have lost him. And he has been, in my opinion, close enough to the draftee or you know, trade of the year. Draftee by way of starting at a new club. Recruit of the year, that's the word I was thinking of. He's very well up there, makes a strong case for being the best recruit of 2024. He has had a sensational season. We're now going to shift our attention to our half-forward line. Again, players nominated here that I can't get my head around. Joe Danaher, Cam Rayner, Harry Mackay. Who else got nominated here that I'm kind of scratching my head over? Jamara Ugle-Hagan. I don't think he's been anywhere near All-Australian form. Jake Waterman's had a good year, but I think compared to the other key forwards, probably not so much. So it's going to be interesting to see where things kind of situate themselves. First forward picked on the half-forward flank, I'm going with Dylan Moore. He's been an absolute powerhouse in that forward line for Hawthorn. And it's not just the amount of goals kicked, but his score involvements, his tackling pressure. It's absolutely insane to see the eliteness that he has displayed. Centre half forward, controversy is going to start creeping in because there are 3 key forwards here that I think should be in the team, but I'm not going to put all 3 key forwards in because I don't think you can justify that. Centre half forward for me, I am going to go with Jeremy Cameron. I compared him to Charlie Curnow, and he pipped Charlie Curnow for second in the Coleman, given the fact that he kicked 9 goals in the last game of the season. But when you look at his stats, he stacks up a hell of a lot better. I know Charlie Curnow is a traditional full forward. Jeremy Cameron gets a lot of the ball up the ground. But Jeremy Cameron's had a stellar year and should comfortably make the 22. On the other half-forward flank, this is where, again, decisions could be made. And you could make arguments for Marcus Bontempelli has played forward time. Isaac Heaney has played forward time. Horn Francis has played forward time. I want to try and select players that have played the role, and it starts to make things very hard. This is where I could potentially turn around and take out Jeremy Cameron. I think that's what I'm about to do. I'm about to put Charlie Curnow at centre half forward, and I'm going to put Jeremy Cameron on the half forward flank. Curnow was going to win the the Coleman rather, for a long period of time. I still am very bullish about the avenues to how he gets his kicks at full forward and how those goals are kicked, but he's still one of the elites. He was looking for his 3rd Coleman in a row. Hard to look past him, and to be pipped on the line by Jeremy Cameron because he missed the last couple of games and Jeremy Cameron kicked a bag, probably harsh to discredit him for All-Australian overall. I'm going to lock that in as my half-forward line. For my full forward line, and they're pretty much in a row here. Now, again, I can't justify selecting Jason Horne-Francis. He played a lot of midfield minutes this year. Cam Rayner had a couple of good games, but I don't think he was All-Australian worthy. Same as Joe Danaher and Harry Mackay. I don't know how these 3 got in there. I really don't. You can make a case for Waterman. I don't think he was consistent enough compared to the 3 I'm going to pick. Tyson Stengel's going to be my first pick. He kicked another 40-plus goals this year as a small forward. That is an incredible effort. He kicked almost the same amount of goals he did when he got the Australian jacket the year before. So, very much has replicated that form. Very deserving as a forward pocket. Jesse Hogan won the Coleman. Full forward, 69 goals. Has been his best year. For his first Coleman at his 3rd club. Absolutely insane to finally be recognised as an elite, and it's a bit of a shame that it took this long in his career to be recognised. My other forward pocket, I didn't realise how consistent this player had been until I looked at the stats. Brent Daniels has averaged 18 disposals and a goal a game throughout the whole year, and I've only recently been seeing him pop up and about, but he definitely, I feel, is in the mix for his first All-Australian Blazer, especially with the amount of score involvements he's involved in, his direct goal assists, his tackling pressure. He rates elite in all of them. Followers, Ruckman and my 2 on-ballers. Now, this is going to be controversial. Max Gawn only got nominated this year off of reputation. He has not been close to this year's best Ruckman. The 2 that have been nominated, Cameron and Cherry, well above Max Gawn, I feel, with the output they've had, and Rowan Marshall should be sitting here as the third. My vote for Ruck of the Year, especially All-Australian, is Tristan Xerri. Look at the stats. They speak for themselves. He rates in the top 5. I think he actually sits second for tackles. He sits within, you know, the elite for clearances. He sits within the elite for hitouts. He, as a midfield extension, really. He's not just a ruckman. He's an extension of North Melbourne's midfield with the way that he can clear his own ball. He lays tackles. He gets down and dirty. I love what he has done this year, and he definitely deserves to be recognised. I think it speaks for itself, the next two that are going to be selected. Patrick Cripps, Nick Dacos. Going head-to-head for the Brownlow. Both rank elite in all of their aspects. Hard to go past them. You know, there are some players here that are going to be stiff to miss the team overall. I'm hoping I do due diligence by putting the 4 on the bench that I feel are deserving, but even then, I feel there are going to be players that have performed well this year that are going to miss out, and that unfortunately is the extension of how the All-Australian selection works. Now, it's 22. We do have a substitute on the bench, so even though we don't select a sub, I'm going to select a sub for the purpose of the video. So we're going to be picking 5 players at this point in time, and I'll just add like a little visual of the 5th that I'm going to pick as the sub. So going from top to bottom, first selected player on the interchange is Zach Merritt, overlooked by a lot of people, deserves 100% to be in the team this year, and for a bulk of the year, I actually threw his name up as All-Australian captain, because if it wasn't for the almost single-handed effortness of Zach Merritt in some of Essendon's contests, they would have fallen short. He carried them exponentially throughout this season, especially when it came to delivery inside 50, score involvements, clearances when needed, always gets the job done. Caleb Serong follows up. Another stellar year for Fremantle. He has been Fremantle's best, I feel, just ahead of Andrew Brayshaw. Another incredible year, and when you consider the fact that they were umming and ahhing at the time between whether they kept Caleb Serong or Adam Cerra when it came to that deal that went down with Carlton, they're probably laughing all the way home to the bank with the fact that they got rid of Adam Cerra and kept Caleb Serong, because Adam Cerra, I don't think, could even lace Caleb Serong's boots. Third spot on the bench. As we look on through, it's going to be a player that misses, and people are going to be pissed off. They're going to be pissed. I've got to go with Bontempelli. Another incredible year. Again, has he been the best Bulldog? I think Treloar probably has him pipped in some games, but I definitely feel, even you know, putting reputation aside, he has definitely been one of the best players in the comp this year, and he's such a draw. His work in the contest is incredible, and he just takes his moments when needed. My final selection for the bench is going to be Isaac Heaney, front running for the Brownlow for a long period of time. He missed a few games here and there afterwards. That suspension was very innocuous. Missed a couple of games through injury, but I still feel has been Sydney's best. Should well be within the conversation of All-Australian this year. The substitute that I'm going to pick, I'm going to select Zach Butters, because he, out of all of these here that haven't made the list, I think is the stiffest to miss. He has had an incredible year. I unfortunately can't justify him being better than these 4. I know Port Adelaide finished higher on the ladder and all that jazz, but a team finishing higher does not dictate the fact that players should be selected from their teams. Let's not look at the fact that Brisbane made the grand final last year. Charlie Cameron was the only Brisbane player selected in that year's All-Australian squad. So I think the 4 that I've selected here, I'm happy with. I'm going to go with Zach Butters as a sub. I don't think we can select subs, which we cannot by the looks of things. But that is my final team. Harry Sheasel, Harris Andrews and Dan Houston in my fullback line. Lockie Whitfield, Jeremy McGovern, Dane Zorko across my half-back line. Errol Goulden, Lockie Neal and Massimo D'Ambrosio across the centre. We have Dylan Moore, Charlie Curnow and Jeremy Cameron across half-forward. Tyson Stengel, Jesse Hogan, Brent Daniels in my full-forward line. Tristan Xerri, Patrick Cripps, Nick Dacos as followers, with Zach Merritt, Caleb Serong, Marcus Bontempelli, Isaac Heaney all on the interchange, with Zach Butters tentatively named as my tactical sub. And we don't get to select All-Australian coach. It doesn't even seem to allow me to maybe select the All-Australian captain either. But alas, that is my team. I am going to turn around and say that the captain will probably end up being Patrick Cripps. I am going to name my vice-captain as Zach Merritt. Those are my two selections. And for All-Australian coach, I'm going to go with Sam Mitchell. They start the year 0-5. I think that's where I start getting the mix-up. So Brisbane was 0-3. Hawthorn was 0-5. The grind that they have done and the fact that they've come into finals as probably the most informed team in the comp just speaks volumes to how Sam Mitchell has coached these boys. So the two faces that you're missing on screen right now will be completed eventually, but it is going to be Sam Mitchell as coach. It is going to be Zach Butters on the interchange bench as the tactical sub. That is my All-Australian team, ladies and gentlemen. Love it or hate it. Again, if I have a reflection over some of the players that didn't make the team that was stiff to miss out, if I could just go back, maybe, and just have a look at that final selection screen. James Sicily, probably the one for me. I don't think he put in a big enough body of work throughout the whole year to be considered, but stiff to miss. Chad Warner is another one stiff to miss for me as well. Nick Blakey, I feel, off halfback has been incredible. I would have loved to have included either of those Fremantle boys in the back line, but unfortunately, again, I feel they padded a lot of their stats by just sharing the ball amongst themselves. You could argue the same thing with Harry Sheezel, don't get me wrong, but again, Harry Sheezel's probably the only player that I have selected out of place in essence of the fact that he started the year off as a defender, but he ended the year as a midfielder. At least he played, I feel, a bulk enough minutes in that defensive role to be nominated and selected for that defensive role. That is it for me for today, ladies and gentlemen. Do hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you didn't, let me know why. Comments down below. Always open, and I always love interacting with every single one of you who take the time to do so. Do leave a like on the video as well if you did enjoy, because that tells YouTube I'm doing something right around here. Hit that notification bell as well, so whenever I upload, you guys get that little ring-a-ding-ding to let you know something new has gone down. As I said, tomorrow, AFLW competition will open up. I don't think we're going to be playing for any sheep stations. It's just something fun and time-consuming enough to bide some time during the AFL men's off-season. A lot of other things are going to be happening over the next couple of weeks as well. Mock draft inbound, trade talk podcast inbound, draft talk podcast inbound. We'll rate every team's season and what I feel they need to do during the trade and draft period heading into 2025. I'm going to do a Richmond Fallout video speaking about the Exodus and everything that's going on and how I interpret it as a Richmond supporter. A lot of things inbound. A lot of good things, I hope. So I hope you guys are keen for that as well. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. And as always, I will catch you guys next time.